Welcome everyone to our new F1 news show. I'm here with Naven.
Hello.
Hello, Naven. And yeah, this is going to be a topical show about what's going on in the F1 news world. So we'll start with our race review of the German GP. Surprise, surprise, Rosberg wins from pole position.
Yes, who would have thought with the only person who could have beaten him, like starting in 20th?
Yep.
But yeah, it was a great win for Nico, and I'm sure the German fans enjoyed it a lot. But perhaps the more impressive drive was Hamilton's recovery to third from 20th on the grid.
Yes, it was a pretty impressive drive considering the circumstances, and I think without that early pit stop, he probably would have just claimed second.
In fairness, though, it should have been a safety car, in my opinion, and if the safety car had come out, he would have been ahead of Bottas at that point. So It was the right call by Mercedes. Honestly, I think what really cost Lewis is him getting in knocks with, especially Button, but also Raikkonen, and he had a knock with Soto. I think that, good speed and everything, but I think he took a bit too many risks.
Well, he had it all to gain, really. He was already at a loss, so you can kind of understand why he'd be trying everything he can.
But not to take anything away from Rosberg, he did the bare minimum of what he had to do, and you don't want to push too hard and do something, and it was a very Prost-esque drive from him.
So next, obviously, Bottas completes his podium triple. It was third place back in Austria and second place in Silverstone, and he repeats his second position in the German GP, making it 3 podiums in a row. It was a very impressive feat from Bottas.
Yeah, I've always rated Bottas, and I thought he got some people didn't credit the job he did last year. As well, his Australia drive was great, his Spain drive was great. He should have been on the podium in Australia, to be honest, so maybe it wasn't totally great. And the other race, he's just been picking up the points where he can. He's clearly a massive star, and Williams have got a great driver under the belt. But his teammate this year, of course, a fantastic driver in Felipe Massa, but the luck is really not with him this season. I mean, after the Silverstone crash, after the Canada crash, after his strategy got botched in Austria, and now him and Magnussen crash at turn 1.
Yeah, it's a real shame for him, especially as the Williams is better than the Ferrari at the moment. It's unfortunate that he keeps getting into situations like that where he's losing valuable points for his championship.
It's such a shame because he's looked like the oldish Massa since he went to Williams, free of the Alonso-ness, and his speed has been better than it's been in years. But you used the right words. You said keeps getting himself involved in situations. It's not that he's at fault, but I wonder if it's a coincidence that he keeps being involved in so many incidents.
There's only so much you can do, as you can see in Hamilton's season. It's a lot of it can come down to luck, and unfortunately for Massa this season, even though he's got the speed, he's just not getting the luck right now.
It is true. But anyway, now we're going to move on from the race review of Germany and move on to the weekly news. And the big news before Germany, which I suppose did not end up being a bigger story as people thought, was the removal of the frick on all cars. The FIA ruled they'd have to be abolished for 2015. Basically, they said you can race with them, but other teams can protest it. And slowly, teams started removing them, and then they all basically said they would have it off in Germany.
Well, I think the teams understood that they probably had an equal amount of gains from Frick, that if they all removed them, it's not going to change that much, and it's better for them to remove them to stop anyone from, discrediting their positions and, them getting penalties and stuff.
Having said that, one team that I think has lost out is Lotus. I mean, that car was a bit of it seems really hard to handle. It seems to have relatively good aero and everything, but it just seems horrible to handle, and it seems like the frick has pushed them back even more. I think they're the only ones that have really lost out. Like you say, everyone else has lost equally. But Lotus, I think, have definitely lost more.
They did look very unstable throughout the entire GP weekend. So moving on, big news on the catering front. Obviously, massive takeover from a consortium of Swiss companies, and yeah, job cuts. I think there was about loss of about 40 jobs. So who knows what the future is going to be for Caterham? It, might not last long, but with this new group, possibly they could push it into the right direction, because it's been a bit stagnant for the last few years, hasn't it?
It has, but I think them getting Christian Albers in is an interesting choice, because a lot of people probably don't remember that Toro Rosso used to be Minardi, and Minardi were, the back of the back at the time. And who did they get in to, run the team? They got in Gerhard Berger, and he ran Toro Rosso for a few years, and he made that car into a winning car with Vettel in Italy. And I don't know, I feel like Caterham, they've gone the wrong approach over these seasons. Maybe a bit more about the flash and dazzle of F1 than the actual core of it. And they need to save money, and I think Albers is going to sort them out. To add to his week of amazingness that Rosberg had with Germany winning the World Cup, getting married, and winning the German Grand Prix, signed a new contract with Mercedes, which I think was very predictable.
Yeah, I mean, it made sense both for Rosberg and Mercedes, to be honest. I mean, obviously Mercedes are leading the championship, both championships, but mainly with Rosberg in the drivers' title. So he's obviously a good bet. Obviously, still room for Hamilton to come later on. That's a given, but at the moment he's doing he's had a solid season, and yeah, can understand completely why they'd sign him again.
I mean, I think we also know that Lewis is not really a development driver, which is something that McLaren struggled with getting from him and they got from Jensen. And Rosberg seems to be saying very technical minded, a better feel for the car, so I think it's a great partnership between the two, and why break it up?
Well, exactly, especially with the success they're having at the moment.
Yes, indeed.
In other driver news, Maldonado confirmed for Lotus in 2015. I know you want to say something about this, Nathan.
Well, again, this is kind of predictable, but in the kind of saddest sense of, being predictable. But it's just absolutely stupid. I mean, clearly Maldonado, a lot of speed. He did not win the Spanish Grand Prix of accident. There was some stuff that went in his favour, quite a few things, but still, he had to get the speed. But I think you look at 2012, you look at Senna and Maldonado that year, Williams had a really good car, and they wasted it on a fast driver who's inconsistent and a slow driver. If you had Bottas and Massa in that car, they would have had a lot more success that year. And it's just silly that in this day, we seem to be making steps forward of getting young talent in, and these pay drivers going away. But Maldonado is definitely the one big guy, pay driver that's still there.
Yeah, agreed. But I mean, I can kind of understand why Lotus will be doing this, because they've always had financial problems, well, at least for the last few years. Obviously, last year a lot of people, dropping out because they weren't getting paid. So I can understand from that sense, but I completely agree with you. Paid drivers is stupid. If you consider Maldonado, and on his own case, he probably wastes more money by crashing his cars than he actually brings into the team. Surely that's going to be looked into.
Every point adds up to hundreds of thousands of euros or whatever the standard currency is. But I mean, at the same time, you got to look at the Lotus perspective. They've just done a deal to get Mercedes engines next year. They're going to have to pay a lot of money for that. And it's do they want to go bankrupt? I mean, it's a tough position to be in. It's just sad that we even have to be in this position. Well, speaking of inevitabilities, and now would be a good time to move on to our discussion point for the week, which is women drivers in F1. And personally, I think it's just inevitability that eventually it's going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen very soon, or actually I say that and I might contradict myself in a second. But I definitely think the steps in the right direction are being made.
Yeah, I mean, well, Susie Wolff's testing is obviously a good step forward. She showed fairly decent pace. It was only 2/10 behind Bottas. Not Bottas. Massa. Sorry. So obviously she does have the speed, and with more practice, she'll probably get better. Not necessarily that she might get a drive, but it opens up doors for other drivers.
It does. I mean, obviously the one that the media like to focus on is Danica Patrick, who obviously had, won a race in IndyCar, was on the podium many times. Now has gone to NASCAR, trying to hand at that. But she's quite a bit into her 30s now. Has probably down to 2016, and realistically, you can't start driving at F1 at that age nowadays. So I think that ship has sailed. But I do think that the one that everyone needs to look out for is Simona Del Silvestro, who at the beginning of this year signed up as I don't know what the exact word they use, but she's basically like kind of a reservist driver for Sauber or whatever.
Yeah.
And, she got on the podium in IndyCar last year, it was in the top 10 quite a bit, clearly some talent, Swiss driver, 25 years old, so, and you've got to look at the two drivers that Sauber have right now, Sutton and Gutierrez. Neither of them are doing the job they should be doing, and there are a lot of, not that they should come into it, but I mean realistic, she's clearly a good driver, and she could get into a Formula 1 seat, but I imagine there are a lot of sponsors out there who want to back a female driver, and that's something Sauber really need. So if you've got a talented woman and money coming in as well, which is a big priority for Sauber, then I think she might be there next year.
Right, so now we move on to the speculation section. And in this section we basically, well, as it says, speculate on next season and what might happen. So we'll start off with Caterham's position at the end of this year. To me, I can't see them finishing any higher than last.
Nope, agree. Next point.
Well,
I don't know what to say. I mean, they're so far back to Marussia and Sauber now that it's like, well.
Yeah, they've especially with the Tony Fernandez leaving, there seems to just be a lack of direction, and I think, from what I can tell, there's more of a direction going towards next season than there is now. I think they've pretty much given up, as far as I can tell.
Well, I'll be interested to see next season for the driver lineup. I'm interested to see which of the two drivers they keep, if any. I mean, Kobayashi is clearly doing the best job he can, and we all know how talented he is. But one of the reserve drivers is Robin Frijns, who he won the Formula Renault Championship in his first year, and he beat Kevin Magnussen, whose first year was in Formula Renault as well. Kevin had to wait until the next year to win the title. He also beat, Stan Bird, and Jules Bianchi is the guy that was second in that championship. So, a very talented driver reserved for them. But you know what the problem is? He doesn't bring any money.
And that, especially with teams like Caterham and Marussia, they need the money. That makes the difference to them.
And someone like Marcus Ericsson, he is the one bringing the money. He was clearly fast in GP2, but he was really inconsistent, and he only finished like 6th in the championship. So it's the money that's got him there. I mean, I'd really like to see Frijns there and Kobayashi, but they might end up with two paid drivers, one alongside Ericsson.
I think they're going to have a paid driver regardless, but I still think they'll have a talented driver, and I think it makes sense to keep Kobayashi in there. He knows the team, and he knows their strengths, if they have any, because he's been in there already, and I think Kobayashi is the type of driver where he can get that car in front of other people, given the chance. And I think if they have a slightly faster car, then they can definitely put it in front of their Marussias next season.
I just think, I mean, we're talking about potential position next year. I think they'll be lost next year as well. I think Marussia, the past couple of years, since they really became Marussia, since they left the Virgin moniker, they have been making steps forward every year. They're getting closer and closer. The scoring points thing was inevitable. Next year, I don't think Chilton will be there. Well, I hope Bianchi will be there as well. I hope he's a better team. But I think Marussia are financially stable. They'll be getting better drivers. I just can't see what's going to happen. I can't see Caterham doing any better next year, to be honest.
It's going to be tough because they've got some tough competition in front of them. Like I said, Marussia, especially if they finish ahead of Sauber this year, that's a massive investment for them for next season. A lot more money coming into the business, and that should help them push for even more. I mean, if you go back to, you remember when Force India started, they were right at the back, and I can't say, well, I'd say every year since then, since they first started, they've improved, even if it's just a little bit.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Is kind of the same with Marussia. They've been improving every year the past 3 years, and this will be the second year in a row they'll be ahead of Caterham. In 2012, they nearly finished ahead of Caterham then as well. So It's been steps forward. I think Caterham need a complete year and a half of recovery now. They just need to recover, get everything in place, and realistically, they won't be able to do anything, I think, until 2016, and even then they might not be able to. Anyway, let's move on to the pre-race predictions for the Hungarian Grand Prix. Quite a busy episode this week, I feel, but the way it is. So we'll start with a section that Scott has aptly named Naven's Numbers.
Naven's Numbers. I think we need a tune for this.
Yeah, alliteration for the nation. Anyway, so I mean, in terms of the numbers, they all point to one man as to who's going, especially this year, which is Lewis Hamilton. Lewis is 4 poles here, the most of any driver in the field, and he's 4 wins here, which ties Michael Schumacher's the most victories. Ayrton won 3, but no one else has got above 2 victories apart from those 3 drivers. And yeah, Lewis, I mean, he has been pretty supreme here. I think 2010 is the only exception. 7 won from pole, 8 he was on pole, but Massa, that was that amazing race that Massa had, and then his engine blew with 2 laps to go, and Kovalainen had won. 2009, that was the start of the McLaren comeback, so great for him. 11, him and Jensen passed Vettel, then it started to rain, and Jensen, typical in his rainy conditions, did well, and then 12 and 11, he just really dominated both of those races. So, all those stats point very heavy to him, which is very nice. In terms of other stats for teams, McLaren by far the most wins here with 11, Williams of 7, Ferrari of 5. It's weird because I think this is a very Red Bull track, one that favours them, but they actually don't have. They've actually only ever won here with Webber. And this is the only track on last year's calendar that Vettel had not won at. Obviously, in this year's Canada, he's not won at Austria or Russia, but that's because it's their first years. So, everything's pointing towards Lewis at the time here. Another interesting number, all 4 times Lewis has won this race, Kimi Räikkönen has been second. Which I think is pretty interesting. And another little stat to keep in mind if the weather comes, there have only been 2 wet races at Hungary, and Jenson Button has won them both.
Some very interesting stats there.
It is. It is also, just the final one, a lot of first-time winners here. Alonso, Kovalainen, Damon Hill, Jenson Button. So if you're like Mr. Valtteri Bottas and you're looking for your first win, then something like that might be helpful.
It's not a bad shout. It's still going to take quite a bit to knock Mercedes off their top pedestal, though.
Of course it is. But I actually do think, like I say, the stats might not go with it because of how well Lewis especially does here. But I think this is a real Red Bull track. Vettel has been unlucky a couple of times in the past, and Webber did win it. Very, very focused on downforce. Not many straights for that Mercedes engine to pull away from them. I mean, you look in Germany, they were with the Mercedes in sector 1 and 3. It was just 2 where they got annihilated. So I think Red Bull will probably be ahead of Williams here as well for the first time in a few races. I think it'll be very close to Mercedes, but I still can't see past Mercedes 1-2 as long as there's no reliability, with Lewis leading Nico.
My predictions are pretty much the same. I think Lewis has definitely got the advantage around this track, obviously from previous even if he does have another poor qualifying where he qualifies behind Rosberg, he's definitely got the advantage of his inventive racing style to get past people, as we saw from last season.
That might be a different thing then. If that happened, then that might be a different thing because this is a tough track to race at. You saw last year Vettel got stuck behind Button and couldn't get past him, and that really screwed his race. And Grosjean also got stuck behind Button, and that's where he made that manoeuvre that he got a penalty for. It's so hard to pass around here. You think of Nigel Mansell passing Ayrton Senna, and that is like a standout moment of, oh my god, somebody actually managed to make a really good move.
Yeah, but don't forget Hamilton's on Webber last season.
Yeah, but Webber, different tyres, it's not straightforward. Like I'm talking about if you're going for the leader. I mean, in 1990, Senna was faster than Thierry Bousson round here, and he just could not get past him the entire race. He spent the entire race in his gearbox. And if anyone was going to overtake anyone, it was Ayrton Senna. So, I mean, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think Lewis will be on pole, he'll get away fine, and he'll be able to go for it. Because realistically, if he starts behind Rosberg at the start or through a bad qualifying or whatever, the real way he'd get past him is on strategy, better pace and strategy.
Not a bad shout, not a bad shout.
I am also going to make one last prediction. I don't think Rosberg will actually be on the front row.
Ooh, what, for pole, or do you mean...
Well, yeah, for qualifying, I think there'll be a Red Bull on the front row.
It's a very interesting prediction.
But I still think Rosberg will finish second in the race.
Okay, it's interesting. So you're going for Hamilton, I'm going for Hamilton.
Yes.
Okay, they're settled. So
the numbers all point to it.
You and your numbers.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all or bust then. We've both gone to the same one. So that's the end of this episode. We'll wrap this one up. We'll see you again next week after the Hungarian Grand Prix. Bye-bye.